And welcome to our, sorry, let me just rewind the presentation here. Okay. Awesome. So hi everybody. This will be the final session of phase 2. So just to give you an idea of what we would cover today. So for the first about 10 minutes or so, I'll just give you a quick introduction. I think Alan's already mentioned a few things, but overall what's going to happen in phase 3. Then a very quick it's a very general overview of fundraising. It'll be hard to really get into too many details, but I'll just cover a few key aspects. And then steps 3 and 4 are going to be like to really start to get you prepared to do your resource pitches as part of phase 3. And then phase 5 would be where we would talk through some next steps, including just going over, I think Alan has put a few things into the group about signing up for mentorship sessions and things like that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that just in case you need some more information or you want to ask any questions. And again, as much as you guys, a few of these sessions will be pretty interactive. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat box or shout them out. And I guess, Alan, if you see anything come into the chat box, if you could just let me know, because I'm not always seeing that. So just as a quick review of where we're headed with phase 3, I've shown you this several times in the past. So phase 1, we've done. Phase 2, we're in the fundraising section here. And then phase 3, the main thing is going to be gospel integration and then the showcase that we're going to do. And then it'll end in a sort of individual resource matching / planning the way forward. So now to dig into, so this is what the 2 days are looking like. On the first day, the morning is going to be focused mainly on gospel integration sessions. So the important thing for you guys to note here is please do bring your business model canvases, and because we'll be using those to the extent possible. There'll be some time. So it would be essentially what we'll do is have a session, have an exercise, and then give you some time to incorporate some of those learnings onto your business model canvas. And then we'll repeat that for each of the gospel integration sessions. We won't have enough time because we had to crunch this down into 2 days. Normally there's, I think, 5 gospel integration sessions, but we'll just cover 3 of them during our session. And then what we'll do is give you an idea of what some of the other ones are like. So if you're further interested in diving even deeper into the gospel integration areas, you can always be in touch with us for further learning. So that's the morning. And then afternoon, what we're going to do is we have some, essentially there's one-on-one mentoring sessions set up. One is with, you'll have one each, one with Gun and possibly myself, where we'll be, where you can do a mock pitch with the resource pitch that you have prepared, and then we can give feedback or answer any questions for you. And then the second one-on-one mentoring would be with Vivek, who would be working with you on namely on your projections and cash flow projections, but then also in finance in general. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then aside from those, so each of those, you would have one session each with them, and the rest of the time you would be given to you, because I'm assuming that a few of you would still be working on your resource pitches. So we'll give you individual time. When you're not, essentially you'll all be in the room, and then you'll get pulled out for your mentoring sessions. And the rest of the time you can be there, you can work on your presentations or you can do your individual work, and we'll be around to, help on ad hoc basis. Whatever questions you have, the team will be around. So that's the first day. The second day is all about the resource pitches. So depending on how many pitch sessions we have, probably the majority of the morning and afternoon there'll be one room where there'll be pitch sessions. And then outside in the other part of the room, we'll have you guys set up your business model canvases, and you can, this is not a hard and fast rule, but generally be around the area of your business model canvas. And then all of the different mentors that are there, whatever ones are not in the pitch sessions, will be circulating and spending time with each of you. So we'll ask each of them to make sure to spend some time with each entrepreneur. So they'll come, they'll take a look at your business model canvas, understand a bit about your business, and then yeah, you can interact with them on an ad hoc basis. Yeah, any questions on the schedule? All right. So moving forward, so this is just a fundraising overview. So the first thing I wanted to do is, I'm really going to just cover two things when it comes to fundraising. One is just a broad overview on debt versus equity. Can I get a sort of, what would be the best? I'm like, basically what I want to get a sense for is what you guys already know about debt versus equity, so that I know how much detail to go in. So maybe you can give a thumbs up if you all like, take a quick look at what's on the screen, and if you feel like you're very comfortable with this, you could give a thumbs up in your window. If you feel like you're not comfortable with this, you can give another signal. What would be another signal? Any other signal, like
Can we put a scoring on the chat, Brian? Like how, like if I'm very comfortable with
so that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Maybe 1 to 10 in the chat. 10 meaning you pretty much know everything that's on this page already, and 1 meaning you don't really know anything, and then 5 being somewhere in between. Yeah, thanks, Alan. That's a good idea. Sorry, was the instructions clear to you guys? Just quickly type in from a scale of 1 to 10 how comfortable you are with, the definitions of debt versus equity, with 10 being very comfortable and 1 being not comfortable. So we have a 5, we have a 4. I'll just wait for 1 or 2 more responses before we keep going. Comfortable with what you're like, basically. So if you don't understand at all the difference between debt and equity, that would be a 1. If you understand it very well, you're comfortable. So maybe comfortable is a confusing word. Like, how well do you understand debt versus equity? And if you really don't even understand what I'm saying, then you could put a 1. That might be the case. That's fine too. All right. So it seems like everybody has some familiarity, but not super expertise. So I'll go through this quickly, but what I really would encourage you guys to do is ask questions. There will be some terms on here you probably don't understand, and if I cover it very high level, you can ask for more. So yeah, at the very high level, the difference between debt and equity being, if you think about fundraising being trying to get money into your company for growth, scale, operations, etc. I think the 2 most common things that I see money needed for, one is investment. So like things like capital investment, meaning you have to put up a factory, or you have to do some marketing spend. You have to basically make some upfront spend so that you can grow the company, or have money to pay salaries, etc. And 2 is things like working capital. Things like you have to buy inventory, or you have to have, the 1 or 2 months where you have to have there for your salary. So according to the need that you have, sometimes these debt versus equity one might apply more to the other. So I've not really written it in terms of the use. In general, if you're talking about something like working capital, oftentimes people try to go with debt because it's working capital, meaning you can take a money and you'll know you'll basically revolve that money within a month or 2 months. So debt is an instrument that lines up well with that. But if you're looking at something like a long-term investment or research, something where you're not sure when you would get the money to pay back, a lot of times people go the equity route for that kind of money. So essentially debt, in one word, is borrowing. So you're borrowing from somebody like a bank, or you're borrowing even from a private business. And equity, meaning somebody's putting money into your company in exchange for having an ownership in that company. So there's certainly pros and cons to each. Probably the biggest difference between debt and equity is the concept of ownership. So when you talk about debt, the person that you're borrowing from doesn't get any kind of ownership of your company. When you're talking about equity, they're getting ownership of your company. And that also means that they are having some say in your business. They would have, even at some extremes, they can prevent some things you might want to do. If they have enough ownership, they could, I mean, it's a bit scary, but they could replace you. There's been many cases where equity owners or people with equity in a company have told the CEO that haven't fired the CEO, for example. So I'm not trying to scare you, but there's a reality behind equity in some of the states. But yeah, just to go maybe in a bit more straightforward way, just going down the debt. So the pros of debt is, yeah, no loss of control. There's also some potential tax benefits. So depending on the type of debt that you're taking, your repayments of debt can often be tax deductible. The cons of debt, one is it's a fixed repayment schedule, especially if you borrow from somebody like a bank. There's consequences for not paying that back. For a lot of formal types of debt, you may have given some collateral. There's things like your credit score. There's other ways in which they set up so that they can collect the money back from you. On the other hand, equity, often there's higher amounts, but the biggest pro of equity is essentially you get the money and there's no schedule set on when you have to repay it, right? For the most part, I mean, there are some variations depending on your negotiations with your investors, but for the most part, you're given that money and you do what you want with it. And if you completely lose it, it's not that it's okay, but it's not that you owe that money back to the person who gave it to you. The cons of equity, like I mentioned before, is you lose control. So for example, like major changes to your company, you'd have to run by your shareholders. A lot of times your major shareholders are sitting on your board of directors. So a lot of for a lot legal reasons, a lot of the decisions you're going to make, it's like even something as small as changing your auditor or changing your articles of association or the legal registration parts of your company to enter new lines of business. There would be a potential vote that would have to take place from your board of directors. There's also, with the loss of equity ownership, there's a reduction in your ownership upside. So if you think someone comes in and takes 10% of your company, then later if you sell your company, then 10% of it actually would go to them. And then probably another con of equity is there's significant time and effort that goes. There's quite a onboarding process. There's quite a diligence process with a lot of these venture capitalists or equity investors, which I'll go into in the next slide. But there's also a significant amount of time. For example, there would be quarterly board of director meetings. Your equity owners might ask for reporting, whereas typically, if you've taken debt from a bank or somebody, as long as you're paying that back, you don't have to report to them at all. And then at the bottom, I don't know how much, I'll go through this at like a very high level, but like if anybody wants to hear anything more about it, you can ask. There are some variations. So debt, something like a soft loan. For example, YouthNet offers soft loans to entrepreneurs. A lot of times they would be more flexible in payments. There might be less collateral that they're asking, less or no collaterals that they're asking. So it's, a lot of these cons, like the consequences for non-payment might be a bit softer. A lot of times soft loans are associated with people that are either trying to support your organization or even friends or family. And then there's venture debt. Venture debt differs from regular debt because regular debt you think of as like a finance institution or a bank giving it to you. But venture debt would often be given to you by investors who are looking to, inject capital into your company, oftentimes alongside an equity fundraise, and then they're going to take that back. So if you think about raising $5 million, for example, in a Series A, a lot of times you might say, okay, I can take 1 million of that in venture debt, and you'll get that from a venture capitalist or a venture debt provider. And then the other 4 million you might take in equity, for example. So a lot of times the venture debt is strategically put as a percentage of the round, as a way to lessen the amount of ownership that you're giving up. Yeah, so question here is, what's the difference between venture debt or venture capital? I think there's technical term. Venture capital is anybody who's venturing, venture capital is oftentimes associated with early stages of company, where somebody's coming in and putting money into your company it's very risky money that they're putting in because you would be an early stage company, but they're expecting that if it goes well, there would be a large return that they would get back. So that venture capital could come in the form of equity. So when you think of the term venture capital, it's often associated with equity, which would be they're going to put in a certain amount of money, like the $4 million, and they're going to get 20% of your company and shares in your company. Venture debt is, if you think about a similar mentality, somebody who's going to come in at a very risky stage with you, but they're going to give it to you in the form of debt. And oftentimes that debt is going to be given without collateral. It's not given to you in the same way that the banks might be giving it to you. It's being given because the venture person giving you venture debt knows they're coming in alongside a venture capitalist who's giving equity. So they're going to give you a loan, sometimes, for example, for your working capital. So I don't know if it's completely clear, but venture debt is typically not coming from like a bank, for example. It's oftentimes coming from, a very profit-minded investor who's going to charge potentially a higher rate of interest to you, but in exchange, potentially not take collateral for you or not take. And also oftentimes the venture debt is coming in, alongside a equity investment. So I don't know. I think Uthnet, that's Nikkei. Did that answer your question? Okay. I'm happy to send some more information, or we can discuss further if you want to. A lot of the terms in the investment world are sometimes they're used in different ways. So venture, for example, private equity is any form of private money that's put into a company in exchange for equity. But if there's also like a common usage, like private equity, the popular usage of it is oftentimes for like later stage companies. So something like venture capital would be the same way, whereas in the typical usage of it is an early stage person putting money into your company in exchange for equity. But like actually, if you dissect what the term means, it's like venture debt would be considered a venture capital too. Okay, so that's debt. Just to run down the equity side, convertible debt, I've put it on the equity side, but essentially that's somebody who wants to put debt, and then oftentimes at their option, there's different kinds, sometimes at their option or sometimes it's mandatory, that it could convert into equity. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. It's very good for an investor because you're putting money into a company and you're getting debt returns, so you're getting payments. And then if that company starts to accelerate, then you can say, okay, now I want this in equity, and you can convert all your debt into equity. So it's quite but that's at your option. And if you think about the way it runs, like if the company's failing, you would never convert anyway. So you're really only converting if the company's doing well. So it's very safe for the investor. And the upside for the entrepreneur is a lot of times the investor will come, because it's safer from the investor, they're gonna be a lot faster with giving this to you. And you might get this, if a investor is not comfortable putting an equity investment in you yet, but but you need the money now, you can oftentimes say, hey, can we do it as convertible debt? So that protects the investor, and the upside for you is you get that money earlier, essentially. Yeah. Preference shares, and this is something that like I probably can't do it justice. Like you'll want to talk to lawyers, but there's different classes of shares that people would put in when they're investing in a company. If an investor is asking for preference shares, which they often would, it means that if there's ever any liquidation, meaning if your company basically turns to, if you sell the company or if you're bankrupt and you're paying out your investors, the preference share people would get their money first. Oftentimes the difference in preference share is that oftentimes they don't have voting rights, so they might not sit on your board of directors. What my investors did to me, which I don't know if you can negotiate out of this if you want, is they hold preference shares, but they have an option to convert it to regular shares anytime they want. So they kind of took a best of both worlds. And the reason I share this story with you is there's a lot of, I could tell you like, what does an equity contract look like? But at the end of the day, it's oftentimes just a negotiation. There's a lot of points in your agreement you might have with an investor that you could negotiate out if you have enough negotiating power, which I didn't, so I accepted this. And then, I don't know if you'll come across this very much, but SAFE is a simple agreement for future equity. So somebody might want to give you money and just say that, hey, we'll take the equity later. And sometimes it's just like a very simple, straightforward thing. It's kind of a new concept. I think this was initiated by one of the accelerators in Silicon Valley. Yeah, any questions on this? This is like a really quick overview. There's a lot more depth behind all of this. And what I think is very important is that, and actually, which I'll get to in the next slide, but if you're ever really looking at something like, especially on the equity side, that you should probably be involving lawyers or professional CFOs, because there's a lot of different implications depending on at the same time, I don't want you guys to be scared of equity, because in many cases, it's the fastest and best way to grow your company. But that being said, you need to go into it with your eyes open. So I think if you're going through an equity negotiation, it would make a lot of sense to be doing it alongside a lawyer. Yeah. I see a question from Nikki about explaining a bit on the convertible debentures. So essentially, what often happens is you'll be given a debt at a set coupon rate. So whatever interest and whatever payment terms are there. And then you would either, one of two things, you would either specify a conversion valuation, meaning if the investor wants to convert, this is the amount of shares they would get. So you would either set that up front, or another way you could do it is you would say, add a discount to your next valuation, meaning that they would get an advantageous valuation to whatever, if you raise a subsequent round of funding, that they would get a discount to that. So if your company is being valued at, okay, so like very simple math, right? If I put in $1 million and your company is valued at $10 million, that's including my $1 million, I would get 10% of your company. But a discount to that would mean that because I've invested in you at an earlier stage, maybe the valuation is like 20% discount. So then the valuation would just be 8%. And then I would get 1/8 is like 15% of your company. So it's a bit technical, but it just means that they would get more of your company versus somebody else who's investing. One variation on convertible debentures is compulsory convertible CCDs, compulsory convertible debenture, which is just a way of saying that it's going to convert automatically at a certain time. Yeah, so I think that's the best I could explain it for now, but we can always have a further discussion, because my company actually was given CCD, compulsory convertible debenture, at some point. And then they actually ended up just selling that. They were actually an organization that was trying to support us. So they actually just sold us back that equity at a certain amount of time. Again, if you're going to get into these kind of structures, I think talking to a CACS and a lawyer would also be helpful, because the thing with convertible debentures is there's tax implications. I don't know, in the Nagaland context, it might be a bit different, but like, for example, we wanted to buy back the debentures from them. They actually wanted to give it to us for free because they just wanted to give our equity back to us, but they couldn't do it because of the tax implication of that, which would mean essentially we would have to pay taxes on them giving our equity back to us. So thinking through some of these tax implications at an early stage. Again, I hesitate to tell all these details because I think a lot of you guys or the entrepreneurs, I don't want to scare you from taking in money, because it's definitely a valuable, important thing to do, but just to do it you should just do it under guidance if you're going to do it. Yeah, in answer to Nikkei, yes. Correct. Yeah, you're there. So say they give you $1 million in debt, and then you'll pay that back over time, and then at a certain point they can convert and take equity if they want. But yeah, again, based on how much you've not paid back. So if you've paid the whole thing back, they can't just say, oh, thank you, and I'm converting to equity. I think they would convert based on how much a balance is still in your company. And it can be set up it's also sort of I like convertible. A lot of time it's like even though it's safer from the investors, it's also done in a sort of it can be done it can be seen as protection for an investor, but depending on your relationship, it can also be done in a way that's friendly to entrepreneur, right? If you have an agreement that hey, this is debt, but if it ever gets to the point where you can't repay the debt, maybe I'll switch it to equity. So some of these structures can be done in a way that's entrepreneur and investor friendly, but you have to get a bit creative about it. Yeah. All right, guys. All right, I'm going to move on for the sake of time here, but we can always field more of these questions offline. And also, just as a heads up, we're looking to do hopefully a legal session post phase 3, and so somebody who has a lot more knowledge in this than me can help you out there as well. Yeah. So what I wanted to just quickly do for the last part of this is just give you an example equity fundraise process, because, and this is I've just laid this out. It could go a lot of different ways, but this is just a typical one. So the first thing, what I've called is outreach, and this might be something like sending your pitch deck out to investors or getting introduced to investors, or what we did a lot at my company was some of these angel networks. They would have these pitch days. So we would essentially submit our application to an angel network, and they would filter it, and they would select us to pitch in front of their group of entrepreneurs. But essentially the outreach stage is when you're talking to a lot of investors and you're doing a lot of pitches. One advice I would have for this stage is don't start your outreach when you need the money. Okay. Start building your net, even if you feel like you're not ready to invest now, but you think maybe in a year or 2 years, you might want to take investment. It doesn't hurt to get on the radar of investors. You can always tell them hey, look, I know I'm not at a point where I can take your investment, but would love your feedback on what I'm doing, or even just getting to know them and understanding what they would look for, or just because for us, some of the investors that have ended up investing in my company, by the time they invested, I had known them for 2-3 years already. In fact, one of them had wanted to invest a small amount of money in my company, but I decided at a certain point I didn't want to take that money, but I said, let's keep in touch. And if I end up raising a larger amount of money later, would love to have you along with me. And the benefit of that was later, then when I went to raise a larger amount of money, the other investors were more comfortable investing in me because the first investor was already saying, hey, we're ready to invest. So nobody wants to be the first investor, but if they see somebody else already, like say you're going to raise $1 million and one person's like, I'm willing to commit 25% of that round, if you just find the rest of the 75% from somewhere else, that's quite a positive place to be in, because other investors will take comfort that there's already somebody willing to put the 25 lakh into your company, or sorry, the 250,000 if you're talking US dollars. Yeah. So so what's in the gray is some of the activities. In the blue are some of the external people you might want to have alongside. So if you have an internal CFO, they would likely play a really valuable role. Or as we mentioned last time, things like outsourcing your CFO role, because these would be the people that are building out your cash flow projections, that are making sure your books are in line and ready for investment. Because for the most part, when someone's ready to invest money in you, they're going to want to see your projections. And this is actually as we go farther in this exercise, which we'll get to in a few slides, we're going to ask you to build out some simple cash flow projections as a practice of this. Another thing that exists is fundraising consultants. I've not used it myself, but there's people who will walk you through the whole process, including making all the introductions, helping you get your pitch in line, helping you just get all your collaterals and your books in line. And in exchange, they'll take a percentage of your fundraise. They'll say like, okay, and I don't have a benchmark. They'll say, okay, for 1% of your funding round, I'll basically do this whole thing. So that's a route that some people take. And then, okay, in here, I put diligence, but somewhere in between outreach and diligence, there's selection. So everybody wanting to invest in you will have a different selection process, but typically it's things like pitching. They'll look at your financials. They might talk to your customers. They might do a lot of benchmarking. They're going to come visit you multiple times. You're going to talk to many people within their company. Like you may initially talk to an analyst, and then they're going to bring you in to talk to their partner. Then they might bring you in to talk to an industry expert. Again, I'm generalizing. It might happen a lot faster. Like somebody might just like you and invest in you. But if you're the more formal of an organization that you're raising money from, like a venture capitalist, for example, the sort of the more detailed their process would be. Angel investors would be much so, just like you're a local business person investing in entrepreneurs, the process with them might be a lot simpler. And I'm happy to also if somebody is looking to understand the difference between different types of investors, I don't have a slide on that, but we can always talk about that later. Okay, so now assuming that selection process is done and you've been selected, they're going to put you through diligence. And I think we talked about some of these questions last week in the finance session, but some of the things they'll do is document check. So they're going to, you'd be surprised how many documents they'll want to check. Everything from your registration papers to your capital structure to your bank statements, everything. And then reference checks. We talked about this last week. They might want to talk to your customers. They might want to talk to your suppliers. They might want to talk to your team. They might want to come for a field visit, come to your office. And then, the people involved here, oftentimes your senior team starts to get involved. So they're going to want to talk to, they might want to talk to your head of marketing, for example. Again, the fundraising consultant may be involved. Another person who gets involved at this stage is your bookkeepers, because not every, but most people that are going to give you equity are going to want to start looking at your books, and they're going to ask you questions. So having your bookkeepers or your CA or CS involved here would make sense. And then after the diligence negotiation, and the reason I put this in here importantly was because there's a standard shareholders agreement, and then there's also, depending on your negotiation power, meaning how badly do you need the money, how many other offers do you have, you can negotiate different points in or out. Stereotypically, your average shareholders agreement is going to be very not entrepreneur friendly. So what I highly recommend here is that you would have either a fundraising consultant or especially a lawyer. Let them look at the SHA for you. One, to help you with the negotiation process, but two, it also it helps you maintain the relationship with the investor, because it can get a bit antagonistic. But if it's the lawyer asking all the tough questions and it's not you, a lot of times it keeps the dynamic with the investor a lot friendlier. Yeah, and I'm going to just move a bit quicker here. Distribution, once you get the capital, one important thing to be aware of is there's a lot of compliances involved, especially if you're getting money from outside the country. So you'll want to have a CA, CS that really knows what they're doing. This is an area where we got burned a lot. We ended up paying a lot of government fines because we didn't do all the proper compliances when we took the money in. I think we paid close to $1 lakh in fines, through no fault of our own, I don't think, but the bank was very slow with the paperwork, and our CACS didn't really know what they were doing. So this is I want to emphasize this. Just make sure somebody walks you through the compliances for taking an equity. And then post-investment, you'll have things like board meetings, reporting, and a lot of times that you could have your CFO, your senior team do this. Any questions here? I just want to move a bit quickly through this. Yeah. Awesome. So I'm gonna, if you guys, we'll send this to you again. If you have more questions, we can talk. And also when we come for phase 3, like if one or two of you are feeling like you're really ready to explore fundraising, we can have deeper chats on these. Yeah. Okay. So now, what I want to do is walk you through what I'm going to share with you. This is going to be in 2 parts. I'm going to quickly walk you through a deck, and we'll send you the template. We'll send it to you as a PDF, and then we can send it to you as a PowerPoint as well, editing. Essentially, what you'll see is a series of slides. So we're going to ask you to do a resource pitch, essentially a fundraising pitch during phase 3 next week. And so this is going to outline the different sections we'd like to see in the presentation. Now, how long you're going to have, and essentially there'll be a pitching time and a Q&A. The panel might also decide whether or not they're going to ask questions during your presentation or they're going to wait till the end. We'll let that be on the panel. But how long you're going to have for that session, we'll have to confirm with you later. We just have to see the number of slots we have. But typically it'll be at least 45 minutes, where you might have 15 minutes to pitch, and then up to half an hour, like 20 to 30 minutes where they can ask you questions. Yeah. So if you anticipate like about a 45-minute slot, that'll probably be a good estimate. So your pitches can be like a crisp 10 to 15 minutes. The way this is going to be laid out is each slide is going to give you key questions that you should answer, and then some suggestions. You don't have to address all of the suggestions, and you can also feel free to add additional information. Another important thing is it's not that you have to use the slide format. We don't want to see slides where it's just like a text where you're answering our questions. It's more to just give you an idea of what we feel like you should convey. Gun will come in just a few minutes and share with you like some pitching guidelines, but the more stories and pictures and charts you can use, the better, versus just having everything in text. But of course, that's up to your preference, and not everybody is great at making pictures and charts, but I'll let Gun talk to that. The other thing is you can present your slides in any order. Just because we're giving you the slides in this order doesn't mean you have to go in that order. That's just the order that made sense to me when I was making the slides. But if you have an order which it works better, you can feel free to switch the order. And then, in terms of calculations, like because there'll be projections or there might be unit economics, it would be nice if you have supporting calculations available, either like on your computer or in the appendix, but you don't have to show all your calculations on the slide itself, okay? So that's the general guideline. The first slide is pretty straightforward. It's just going to be some details on your company. You can think of it as almost like a cover page, where you could just you could imagine like a picture and then just like your contact information at the bottom, or your vision statement, something like that. And that's just a reference for us, like afterwards, if we're looking at the presentations, we can, find your information. So the first, again, this doesn't have to be the first slide in your presentation, but one is who's your team, essentially. You don't have to put everyone on your team, but who are the core members? What do they do? If you want to put your organizational structure, you can, but you don't have to. How long have you been working together? And then another area is, do you have any key external support team members? So in phase 1, we went through this list of, functional experts, spiritual mentors. So do you have these people that you want to mention as well? A lot of times people will have like some very influential mentors on their team that also add a lot of credibility to their work. And they like to include that on the team page. But yeah, in a snapshot, your team page is literally just that, like highlights of your team and who you are. Problem statement, this is more like, every business, the fact that someone is willing to pay you money is existing because your product or your solution is addressing a problem. Now that might be in 2 ways, because for social enterprises or even like gospel integrated companies, you might have like a customer problem and you might have a beneficiary problem. So for me, for example, I'm selling tomato products to hotels and restaurants, and that's helping them make better food. But the idea is I'm also solving a problem for the farmers because I'm giving them markets. So that's how I thought about it. You can talk at the minimum, talk about your customers. If you also want to mention your beneficiaries, you can mention them as well. And then one thing that I'm going to point out here, you're going to, in some way or other, you're going to find this on every slide, but are there gospel renewal opportunities associated with this problem? So to the extent that's possible, as you come to each slide in your deck, each area of your business, if you can highlight some areas where there are some gospel integration opportunities, then that would be great. And if you don't know these areas yet, then don't worry. That's what the day 1 of phase 3 is going to be about. So you can always come up with some ideas at that time. So if we're going to ask you to put your presentation together now before phase 3, you can always update it during the first day and add some of these things in if you're coming up with new ideas, basically. Solution. So yeah, so the first slide, the previous slide was at the problem, and like, how are you solving that problem? Broad overview of how your solution works. It could be a product. What's the benefit to your customers? Like, what are you doing that's unique? And again, is there any gospel renewal integrated in your solution? The business model, like how are you making money? It might be as simple as you're selling them a product, and in which case, how much are people paying? What evidence do you have of your customers' willingness to pay? I think for everybody in this cohort, people are actually paying. So just like some details around how you're making money, basically. Market opportunity. The idea of this is for a lot of people that are, especially investors, they're not necessarily equity investors, are investing not in your company for what it is now, but for what it could be. And a lot about what your company could be has to do with the market opportunity. So like, who is your target market? Like, what is the size? Like, how big can this company grow? If you're selling a product that only 10 people in the world use, then your target market is only 10 people, right? So like, investors need to know this. How big is the market? What trends are there that will influence this? For example, if you're doing something having to do with AI, of course, there's a lot of trends. If you're doing something related to fossil fuels, there's trends working in the other way. Government policy might come against you, for example. So and I think one of you guys was doing something related to alcohol, for example. So what are the trends, policies that could influence that? Competitive landscape. So who are the other people making these products, and how are you positioned versus them? What have you done on the ground so far? Oh yeah, this is the thing where it would be nice to give at least a simple projections with, I've put 3 years, but yeah, just do what you're comfortable with. What are your unit economics? Like, how does your, that we covered that workshop, how, like, if you're selling an item, how much does it cost? How much do you make? And then what are your projected revenues and cost over the next few years? Now, I've put at the bottom, can you envision any gospel impact projections? So you can have financial projections, and then you could also have impact projections. So if you're like, oh, this is gonna, whatever, help this many farmers, or this is going to bring this much joy. So you don't have to, but if you can get creative, if you can think of projections for your impact, that's enough to put in. For this part, this is what, if this is a scary slide to you, if you already have your projections, great, you can just showcase them. But if this is scary to you, this is where I'd really encourage you to sign up for as many sessions with Vivek as possible, because he can help you with this. And then the final slide is just, what is your overall brand narrative? Like, so if you think about the way your business fits together, how does that present a coherent story? So things like, if I'm a sustainable company, does that reflect in my logo? Does that reflect in my website? Does that reflect in my packaging? Does it reflect in how I'm talking? Does that reflect in how my team is dressed? You know, if you're a sustainable company that's talking about the environment, yet everybody that works for your company is driving to work, would be a different image versus if you had like a policy promoting public transportation, for example. So how is everything in your company sort of working together to tell the story of your company, basically? And then the last two in here is what we're calling a resource ask. So when you're talking about a pitch or resource pitch, typically it's going to end in an ask. So you're asking for something. For you guys, we want you to do this in 2 stages. One is just a general ask. What do you need to grow your company? If it's funding, how much do you need? What are you going to use it for? Would it be debt or equity? If there's other resource gaps you want to fill, like for example, you're looking to fill positions in your company, here's an opportunity where you can just share like, hey, these are some of the challenges we're facing and we're looking for someone to help us. Maybe you need a mentor in a certain area. Maybe you need a spiritual mentor. Maybe you need somebody to come build a website for you. So what are all some of the things that your challenges you're facing? You can feel free to list them here. And then hopefully somebody in the audience can find a way to help you. And the final page, we wanted to give you practice with like making a very specific ask. So if we were to evaluate a soft loan, and we'll tell you the amount, it might be something like 5 lakhs. How would that help you to scale your business? So if we were to give you 5 lakhs now, what would you use it for? How would it help you scale? And then how would you pay it back? So again, this is where you might want to work with Vivek to lay out how the cash would flow into your company based on your projections. Like how is your projections should show that you're going to be able to pay back the loan. Yeah, any questions on this? Sorry, I've gone through this a bit fast because we're also going to give this to you. And so the questions are just also listed here. I recognize you might not be an expert in all of these areas. In which case you could highlight this in your mentoring sessions, and we might be able to help you individually with some of these areas. Like for example, market sizing, you might have zero idea how to size a market. And then just do your best. We recognize you're not an expert in all these areas. And for us, seeing the areas in which you're not an expert in also helps us understand ways in which we could help you. So if we fast forward to later, like, sorry, it's not on this slide, but when the resource pitch is done, we're going to collect all the feedback from all the different people who've watched you pitch, and we're going to identify some of the sort of areas of growth or areas we might be able to help you. So yeah, do your best, but don't feel bad. If there's a slide you really struggle on, like if you're like, I just don't know how to talk about my competitive landscape or market opportunity, 1, yeah, just ask us for help. And then 2 is like, don't feel bad. We'll see that and we'll note it down as an area that we want to try to help you with. Yeah. So any questions? I'll like just pause for a few minutes for questions and then I'll pass it to Gun. Oh, is Gun here? Oh,
Yes, I am.
Yes.
I have the chat open and I saw that you like joined and left and then joined again. So I had a momentary panic.
I think he joined from a second device and left.
Okay. For some reason, like my chat box just shows like all these people joining, leaving, joining, leaving.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna assume there's no questions, but I'll pass it to Gun now. If questions pop into your head between now and the end of the session, you can always ask them, or you can also pop them into the WhatsApp chat at a later time, because this is probably the most intense thing we've asked you to do so far. So I can definitely expecting there should be some questions as you process this. Yeah. Okay, so Gun, should I stop my screen share? Do you want
to? Yes, that would be good. So I can share mine.
I'll stay on video to give you solidarity.
Thank you. Okay. Can you see my screen? Hi, can you see my screen?
Yeah, yes, Anna.
And my voice is clear?
Yep.
See a white slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually I use a black one. Today I decided to use a grayish kind of screen. All right. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be with you all again, though I can't see your faces. I hope to see you next week. And please bring your faces with you. All right. So Brian was talking about a few things. Our whole RBA is about scaling and our scale strategy. We were looking at a few aspects of scaling, and particularly as phase 2, we are looking at finances and funding. And Brian just ran you through some of the aspects of what is debt and what is equity, what is a pitch specifically made to investors, what are some components of it. He ran you through. I'm going to get into it a little bit more in detail. So I'm going to just give an overview of what is a pitch overview. We're going to kind of understand what is a pitch. He's already told you something, so I'll run through it quickly. Why is it important when you're scaling your business? What are the essential components of a successful pitch? He's already run through most of it. I'll just revise that. And the structure of a successful pitch, we looked at that as well. And I want to talk about an elevator pitch. It's one of the types of pitches. It's an elevator pitch, something we already mentioned a couple of times. And then how do you go about crafting your elevator pitch? We're going to look at these things. That is objective. By the end of this, I hope to cover everything. What is a pitch? A pitch is a persuasive presentation or proposal that aims to convince the audience to adopt a particular idea, product, or a service. You might have an idea, you might have a product or a service to persuade them to adopt that. It is essentially a way to sell someone on your idea or convince them to take action. One of the gurus in pitching that I love and I follow is a guy called Guy Kawasaki. He is a venture capitalist himself. If you are, I'm sure if is Kaki around there, he would know there is a huge graphic design website called Canva. And Canva, he's one of the guys who funds Canva. He's one of the investors into Canva. And this fellow used to be with Apple, and then he came out. He's one of the guys I really follow. I love reading his stuff and watching his videos. So he says, pitching is a process of seeking agreement. You can seek agreement for money. You can seek agreement for recruitment or for partnership or for a sale. For an entrepreneur, the Latin word goes, I think, therefore I am. For an entrepreneur, I pitch, therefore I am. An entrepreneur is always pitching. That's what he says. And it's so true, because Being an entrepreneur myself, I know on a regular basis, I'm always pitching either to attract an investment or to recruit good talent or to form partnership or for a sale, for somebody to buy my product or service, right? Hey, Alan, if there is anybody asking questions you want to break in and let me know, just let me know. I can try and answer that. So,
Sure.
so that is Guy Kawasaki telling that. So why is pitching important to scaling your business? You're all here so you can scale your business from where you are 10 times, 20 times, 50 times. So we're going to look at it. Why is it important to scaling business? Any thoughts? Why is it important? Can you drop it in the chat so I can have a look at it? Any reason why you think scaling, pitching is important for your business? Alan, you'll have to read out and help me because, or Brian, one of you can read out because I can't see the chat window.
Sure enough. So Ali says to get investor.
Yeah, absolutely. If you need to scale your business, there are times you might need some extra working capital, or it might even be a capex investment, capital expenditure investment that you need. You need to buy a new machine. To scale up, you need to pitch to somebody so that they can invest in your company. That's a very nice thought. Anybody else? Pitching is important to scaling your business. Why is that? Okay, if you don't have answers, I'll start putting up the answers here. To attract investors, that's the first thing. Second, if you want to build strategic partnerships. For example, think of Make My Trip. Make My Trip or yatra.com. What do? They are a company that's an aggregator company that is providing ticketing services where on one website you can see all the airline rates, or you can look at train prices, or you can look at prices of hotels, right? So what are they doing? They're building partnerships with airline companies, with the Indian Railways, with different hotels to give the customer really good pricing, right? To secure clients, if you want to secure clients, you need to pitch. You need to be able to explain to your client and customers what your business is about. If you don't, they don't get to buy what you have. If you want to expand your market presence, you need to be able to pitch. And if you want to attract top talent, you want to hire people, you should be able to pitch. Why should they come and join you? I remember going for campus recruitment. And when I started my software company, I went for a campus recruitment, and the college had about some 300 people. I had just 6 vacancies, and I pitched. I told, this is my company. This is what we are going to be doing over the next 5 years. Would you like to come and work with us? Every single hand went up and said, I want to come and work. And from all those resumes, we were able to interview and shortlist 6 people who came and joined me, were with me for about 4.5 years, right? And to differentiate yourself from competitors. So when you pitch, you'll be able to tell your customers, tell your investors how you're a little different, and to communicate vision and strategy to your shareholders, to your investors. When you pitch, you communicate vision and strategy to your board members. And you need to pitch to gain some media coverage as well. There are a lot more things that pitching does for you, but these are some big things, right? And then I want to look at the structure of a successful pitch, right? What Brian was just talking about. First thing is try and tell it as a story, right? And in your story, incorporate and tell what is the problem. Clearly articulate the problem. And when you do that, it's going to really help them. Challenge your idea. Just a moment. I am having some problem. Are you able to see my screen?
No, our screen is gone.
Just a minute. Oops, I'm having some problem here. Just a second. I'm just closing. I have. All right. For some reason, my clicker is not selecting the window. Just a second. Let me just come back. Just give me a moment. My mouse is not selecting anything. Yeah, now it's working. Right. So we look at, you'll have to explain as part of your pitch, what is the problem? Clearly articulate the problem or the challenge that your idea or product is going to address. Second, you need to talk about the solution. Present a solution or the idea as an answer to the identified problem. The third thing, your unique sales proposition or value proposition, where you talk about the unique aspect that differentiate your proposal from others in the market, right? And the next one, you talk about the market opportunity, demonstrate the size and potential of the target market. I'm going to run through an example, and then you will be able to see all of this playing out. And the next one is you need to talk about the revenue model. How are you going to make your money? Is it going to come from subscriptions? It is going to come from people buying your product? How is it going to come? And then also provide evidence of progress and achievements or momentum that supports the viability of your idea. For example, you've been already in the market, you have generated a business of 1 crore over the last year, and you see a potential to go bigger. So tell that I've already achieved 1 crore and I'm seeing more. Okay, and then like he said, it needs to have a clear call to action. Whether you're recruiting, you're attracting investors, or you're going to go on media and talk about something, asking people to invest, you need to have a call to action, right? And then you finally close it with a strong, memorable statement. Okay, in all this, you need to be brief and clear, right? That is most important. In every part of it, you need to be brief and clear. How many of you have watched Shark Tank? Just a hand. You can use your hand raise thing to just show me how many of you watched Shark Tank. Yeah, quite a few of you have seen Shark Tank. You know, it's a nice thing. That is what we are talking. They are generally doing what is called as an elevator pitch. Sorry, investor pitch. So they're asking investors to invest in their company. They are trying to give what is called as an equity investment. It's not debt, but it's equity. They're saying, I need $300,000 for 10% of the company. And then the investor starts negotiating. So that's what is happening. But if you notice, they start and they end. They don't have too much of time. They don't take. It's like brief, but it's clear, right? And another thing you do as a part of the pitch is you build credibility. Whoever is it that you're trying to attract. You're trying to agree with you. You need to show them that, okay, you're worth your salt. They can put in some money into your company. How are you going to do that? You showcase your team expertise. Okay, so this is my team. This is my core team. And so is the person who does the sale. So is the person who is designed this product. This person knows the market very well. This person has developed the product, and I'm here to put them together. So this is my expertise. So are advisors, like Brian said. So you can put that, and the achievements. If you can convince and get Brian to be on your advisory team, put it up and put up his achievements and the industry knowledge. Oh, he knows about business and he knows about this. He knows about the legal system. He started a company in India and that's gone scaled up so much. Put those things. Put your industry knowledge, what you know about the industry. Somebody is doing handicrafts. What do I know about handicrafts? Put that in. Make the person who's listening to your pitch agree with you. For that, you need to be really passionate. Okay, we're going to look at an investor pitch. I'm going to give one example and I'm going to put it on the group. I'm going to give you 2 more pitch decks, right? So 2 more slide decks. I'm going to send it across to you other than the one I'm showing. So you'll have 3 of them. The first one I'm going to show is Airbnb. How many of you have heard about this company, Airbnb? Right, quite a few of you have seen, but it's all Usenet. All right. So some of you have seen Airbnb, and our real estate champion has seen Airbnb as well. Okay. So here is Airbnb's slide, which they used when they pitched for their investors. Okay. I'm trying to show that. Let's see if we can see this. Right. Just a minute. Right. Oops. Can you see the screen? That is Airbnb's slide. Right at the opening, they give a little tagline that says Air Bed and Breakfast, Airbnb. Book rooms with locals rather than hotels. A clear statement. The problem, I told you need to discuss your problem. So what is the problem they're telling? They straight away discuss 3 problems that are there. Price is an important concern for customers booking travel online. Second, hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. The third, no easy way exists to book a room with a local or become a host. They identified these 3 problems and then they came up with a solution. The solution was a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers. You guys have Hornbill coming up. I'm told during Hornbill, a lot of people open up their homes and they leave certain bedrooms to be rented by people who come in from other states and other countries to visit. So he's talking about this, a web platform to help you. Probably you're already using it. So the solution, you use a web platform so you can save money when traveling, you can make money when you're hosting, you can share culture, local connection to the city. Okay, what is the market validation for it? What does the market say about it? They've got a couple of websites that were doing it. Couchsurfing is one, 660,000 users, and Craigslist.com, which is like a marketplace, they were doing 50,000 temporary house listings. Right? Now, market size. On an average, people were booking trips That is about 2 billion trips. And budget and online market within that 2 billion was 560 million. And the trips with Airbnb share of the market, they are looking at 15% of the market, which is 84 million, right? So they're looking at 84 million. See, you see how they broke it down into simple stuff? And then they took the product. You can search by city, you can review listings, you can book it, right? The business model, we take 10% commission on each transaction. 84 million, the market size, $25 an average fee. They're talking a revenue of 2.1 billion. That was in 2011. Now the company is much bigger than that, much, much bigger, right? What about the adoption strategy? How do people get to know and adopt? So target events monthly. There's Oktoberfest that happens in Munich. It's Munich, yes. And then you have CeBIT, you have Summerfest, you have Euro Cup, you have Mardi Gras. They started listing all these events, major events that happen worldwide, and then target those places. And you see, I was also talking, you need not only investors, but also partners. They were looking at cheap and alternative travel. They were looking at Go Loco, Kayak, and Orbitz. So they can point to Airbnb. You can have advertisement on this side that can post. Craigslist, dual posting. You post on Airbnb, it will get posted on Craigslist. And look at the competition that is there. How they looked at it. There is Rentobi, there's VRBO, Bed and Breakfast, Craigslist, and they're looking at online and affordable. They want to see, we want to fit in here. They're not hostels, but they're going to be homes that are going to be rented out. And what are the competitive advantages? The first to the market, first mover advantage, host incentive, list once. You list once, listing is there. Ease of use, how you search by price, location, check-in, check-out dates, profiles. You have to be a member to be that, and you can browse the host profile. And the name is memorable, it'll be there, right? And they put their team up. Joe Gebbia, Brian Chesky, and Nathan Blachowicz. So there it is. They showed the team up, and they showed some of the stuff, their press release that had come up in different places. And then they captured some user testimonials and then put it up there. And the financials, they had a very clear ask and closing. They said, we are looking for 12 months financing to reach 80,000 transactions on Airbnb. They're looking at 2 million that will come in. So they want $500,000 so they can make 2 million revenue. So they want to take 500,000 and put it into the business so they can generate 4 times that money. They have a very clear ask. This was the first round of funding Airbnb went. What do you think happened there? They got it and they went really, really big. Right now, that is one thing that happened. That's a case study. Any questions so far? You can put it up on the group. I told you I love Guy Kawasaki. Guy Kawasaki gives this formula for a pitch, creating a successful pitch. Being a venture capitalist himself, he says, this is what I look for, and I found that successful pitches have. This is a 10, 20, 30 formula. Trust me, I have used this. It is brilliant. You use 10 slides, not more than that. All that we went through in 10 slides, you can do. These guys used 14. You can even cut it down further, like the user testimonials and all that they used. Remember, this was done in the year 2000. We are talking 23 years later, right? So 10, 20, 30 is a formula you can use. 10 slides, 20 minutes of presentation. You're going to be explaining and running through the slides in 20 minutes. And 30, is your minimum font size. You are not going to be having your investors or your audience trying to read so much of text that you put in. It's just, if you increase your font size to 30, if they are sitting in a room, they'll be able to read it. That's the minimum font size. 10 slides, 20 minutes of presentation, 30 is a font size, right? So that is a pitch. It could be an investor pitch, it could be a recruitment pitch, a successful pitch will have this. I want to talk about another quick thing. It's called an elevator pitch. What is an elevator pitch? The time you take traveling up an elevator, or you spend time in an elevator, probably about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. How do you introduce your company, or how do you give a compelling summary about what your business is about? That is an elevator pitch. Let's look at this.
Hey, Mr. CEO, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you.
Ruben, right?
Yes.
Oh, I've
yeah,
heard a lot of good things about you.
Nice.
So,
nice.
What is it that you do then exactly?
Well, you know, I like merge all my talents together and just give it out to the world, like all my stuff inside me. It's like a mixture of stuff. Like, I'm a creative guy, people's person, obviously. I write a bit of comedy, I present, I get up stage, talk to people, and I just know together all my creative ideas and my whole team.
That's not an elevator pitch. That's the ramblings of an unprepared
An elevator pitch is a sentence that sums up what you do so concisely that you can tell it in a space of your average elevator ride. If you were to write it down, it'd be about 140 characters, which is about a tweet. So, let's try that again, shall we?
Hey, Mr. CEO, good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
Hi, Ruben, right?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I've heard a lot of good things about you.
Okay, nice.
So, what is it you do then actually?
I'm a presenter and a comic. I host live events and I make online comedy videos. And I'm also co-founder of individualism.co.uk, which is the UK's leading men's style blog.
Oh, excellent. Got a few events coming up and we could
Okay.
do with your services. Have you got a card, haven't you?
I do. Yes, I do. There you go.
I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a nice day, mate. See? Preparation. It got me some potential work with the CEO of this whole company.
Did you think a men's styling blog?
Remember, guys, your elevator pitch should be short and to the point, even if you do live on the 100th floor. You need to know exactly what you do, as you do not want to give people the wrong idea.
Okay, tips for a successful elevator pitch. What are some tips there? Be clear and concise. In the first, when the video started, this guy was just rambling about stuff. He was probably telling what he does, but there was no structure, there was no clarity, and he was not concise. The other fellow was just trying to escape the elevator, right? And second, he tailored to an audience. He presented it in such a way that somebody the level of a CEO can hear him out. And he would have practiced it so regularly so that it just flows easily. He's not getting stuck anywhere, right? When you look at an example of an elevator pitch in Shark Tank, if you look at guys, how they introduce themselves in the beginning, you look at it, it'll be around 30 seconds, not more than it. That's the elevator pitch, right? Practice regularly and be enthusiastic. If you are not going to be enthusiastic about your business, the other fellow is not going to be. If you're going to be dead in your presentation, he's going to die before talking to you. And then be flexible. Sometimes you might have a couple of guys who will be there in the audience. One might be a CEO, somebody else might be somebody else in an influential position. You should be able to talk to people. So be flexible, right? Here is an example of an elevator pitch. Hi, my name is Gun. I've developed a web app that helps busy professionals manage their daily tasks more efficiently. Unlike other task management apps, ours uses artificial intelligence to learn user preferences and automatically prioritize tasks. Users have seen 30% increase in productivity within the first month of using it. If you'd like to know more about the app, please visit nova.town. On the website, you can even try booking a meeting with me and experience how the app works. That was a real short stuff. Do you have an elevator pitch for your company? Can I hear hands up? If I ask Alan to share or Brian to share one, Brian, can you share an elevator pitch for your company?
Wow. Just on the spot here. Yeah, so my company this is a bit ad hoc, sorry. I've not practiced this in a bit, but yeah, my company is Krishi Star. What we are is an agri-social enterprise. It was started with the idea of benefiting small farmers. So we solve two problems. One, for the farmers, that they have a lot of produce and a lot of value-added products, but they don't have good market linkages. And for our customers, which are hotels and restaurants, looking for alternative domestic natural products to replace expensive imports. We've already expanded to 3 cities across India, which is Delhi, Mumbai, Pune. And then we're looking to raise X amount of money to scale to 5 more cities in the next 2 years. Something like that.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. So you guys have been watching. If you don't have an elevator pitch, don't worry. We're going to be around to help you develop your pitch. I'm going to send you some videos and some reading material and resources across to you. There is this book called Pitch Anything. I would ask you to invest in that book. I'm going to send you the Amazon link for it so you can order it. And I'm going to send you about 6 or 7 YouTube videos and a course on Coursera and Udemy and LinkedIn Learning. And then there is another organization called Toastmasters. Some of you might not be very comfortable standing in front of a gathering and talking. Public speaking does not come easily. Knowing people in the Northeast, my wife is from there, so I know she's not very comfortable talking to a group of people and addressing them, but she's perfectly fine standing and singing before them. So you guys are super talented. All you need to do is translate that singing ability into just slowing down your singing and even sing out your pitch, right? So thank you. Brian says the same thing. So that's what it is. So Toastmasters International is an organization that helps people with public speaking. They help you overcome the fear and all that. I know quite a few friends who are part of it, and they do some phenomenal job. It's there in some of the cities. I don't know if it's there in Northeast. The only reason that I didn't join was most of the meetings happen on Sundays, and Sundays I have to be at the church. Other than that, I'm going to send across a whole bunch of resources. So before we come, I want you guys to be ready with your elevator pitch, right? And then we will sit with you, we will refine it and make sure that you can start practicing it before you go out and raise funds. And we're going to have other people also like Vivek who are going to be there who will help you out. Yeah. So that's from me. Any questions? You can put it up on the chat.
I've just recommended another book. It's not exactly for pitching, but just in like a message. It was a really nice book, made it stick, which is just like the different elements of something that makes a message stick with somebody. So I don't know, Gun, if you have the link to the book that you were saying too, that would be great for people.
Yeah. I'm just putting that across.
In the meantime, just I think in the interest of time, Gun, I'm gonna put up the closing slide here, and we can always hang back and.
I'm done.
Okay. That you really like, that was like my improvised pitch, elevator pitch, by the way. I think if I had to do it over again, like I would have mentioned a bit about personal credibility or like the credibility of my team. Probably recognizing the fact that somebody's looking at me and saying, what does this guy know about Indian agriculture? Yeah. But yeah, okay, so guys, just the last slide in a final couple minutes. So the way forward, of course, you would have all confirmed your attendance for the phase 3 days. If you've not already confirmed, please do so, because we need to plan the scheduling according to how many people are going to be there. Pre-phase 3, which means basically over the next few days before next week, you can sign up for financial projections with Vivek. And then, Gun, I don't know how you want to do this. What I was thinking is if they had pitch deck questions or if they wanted to send us their decks for feedback, they'd be welcome too. I don't know if, Gun, if you have another suggestion.
I think that would be good if they can spend the time over probably the weekend and develop your initial pitch. Put it up on the group or just send it to Alan or Brian or I, even as a personal message. If you don't want to share it on the group, that's fine. You have our numbers on Signal. You can just click that and send it across to us. And then, so when we meet up for mentoring sessions and for the whole meeting there for the third phase, we can discuss that and improvise on that.
More ambitious, if you want to, like, if you're ready to practice and you want to record like a 10-minute Loom video, you can always share that as well. I don't know how many people are going to take us up on this, but and I would encourage, and please do sign up for the financial projections session with Vivek. I think we've posted his Calendly, so you can just click right on there, and you'll see his calendar, and you can just sign up. Do take advantage of that if you have any questions about the financial projections, because I think that could be a big sticking point, because essentially you have to make roughly 2 projections. One is just like your overall projections, and 2 is if you want to answer that question about what would you do if you had a 4 lakh loan or a 5 lakh loan, and how would you repay it? You'll need some form of your financial projections for that. But yeah, I wanted to just encourage you guys. I know it may feel a bit intense to get your pitch deck done over the next few days, but if you're able to submit it, so basically if you do it before phase 3, you submit it to us, you'll get feedback, and then you'll get a scheduled session with us when we're there in person to pitch, and then get more feedback and improve it. The thing is, the benefit of doing it twice, of course, is you'll get an extra iteration on it. So if you don't do anything and you only come and you get the feedback on the first day, and by second day you're pitching, so you'll only really get that afternoon to work on it and redo it. So that's why the extra iteration, even if you're like, for example, even if you can't do the whole pitch deck, even if you just have a few slides and you have you can do it in whatever way you want, right? Like you could send us a few slides and some questions if you want, or if you're unsure about one slide and you want to ask some questions. Basically, the more you engage with us before we meet in person, the better for you. But then in terms of the pre-work, yeah, the resource pitch deck, you should have some at least basic draft before you get to the session. Otherwise, you won't be able to do a mock pitch and get the feedback. Now, understanding that as you go through the gospel integration sessions, you might want to add things onto your pitch. You could always just sort of have a rough draft ready and you can add to it. You'll want to have those 2 times cash flow projections, like I mentioned, and please bring your business model canvases to the session, because we'll need that for the gospel integration sessions. Yeah, and then in phase 3, we'll have the schedule of financial projections, mentoring, and then the pitch deck practice, which essentially, if you come with your pitch deck, Gunn and I can have it almost as if like the mock pitch, like you do your mock pitch, we'll give you feedback right on the spot. Any questions, guys? Alan, if you could please keep me accountable to sending out this pitch deck format to people, that make sure they have it. I'll try to do it tonight, but in case somehow I forget, just remind me, because
Sure,
the
sure, Brian.
earlier they can start working on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And Gun, like if you have do you have a cash flow projections template from that you could send them as well, or send that to Vivek and them?
Yeah, I can send it across to Alan. Then Alan can collate everything and just
Yeah,
send it across.
awesome. So if no questions, we're good. Should we just close in a quick prayer?
Hi, before we close it, by the way, I think in the first slide, Brian, I think in the dates, I think I saw 21, 22 or something, November. In your first slide. So we're looking at 24, right?
Whatever your understanding of the dates is probably more correct than whatever I wrote. What did you? I put 22 and 23, but it's 23 and 24. Which dates did you say?
It is. Our date is 23 and 24, Thursday and Friday.
23
Yes.
and 24. Yeah. So ignore whatever I wrote on the day.
Okay, yeah. So that is one. The other thing is with regard, I mean, this is besides our session. With regard to the paperwork, if you can maybe kindly send it by tomorrow morning or so, maybe by 10 o'clock or so, we can reach out to the Deputy Commissioner's office. Or else, if we go by Monday, maybe we might get delayed some paperwork with regard to our paperwork and so on. So, and with Hornbill coming in, so all those things. So, maybe if your team, the ones who will be visiting us, if you can kindly send your documents that I've already shared.
Yeah, I'll send it to you, Nikki. I'm just collecting it from them. Yeah.
Okay. Chalo, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's it. Besides that, really looking forward. And then thanks for your time. Thanks for the differentiating between debt and equity. I wish there were more. I mean, besides the RBA, I wish there were other team, other entrepreneurs were also part of it. But maybe some other time through virtually, maybe we can arrange something similar. The same thing goes by for business pitching, also preparation for business pitching. So I think two really interesting thing. Of all these three days visit that we have done, tonight was like, for me, I really felt like the other entrepreneurs will be really interested, and it's going to be really helpful for the other entrepreneurs also. So if time permits, if your schedule permits and so on, maybe some other time we can arrange. It could be the same topic, and we can also mobilize other entrepreneurs to be part of it. So yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I think we can discuss when Nikkei, when we discuss the way forward, we can talk about these things.
sure.
Yeah. Alan, since Gunn and I have probably talked our brains out here, can I ask you to close the prayer?
Sure, Brian. Father, I thank you. This very interesting session of Father on fundraising and making the pitch decks. Lord, I thank you for the wisdom that was shared to us, the experience that we could learn and gather, Father, from Brian and from Kanana. Father, we thank you. And I pray for each and every one of my friends who would be your Father, begin to see the business holistically, and especially as they start working towards, Lord, raising funds to scale, and also, Lord, preparing the pitch decks. I want to ask for wisdom, a divine hand upon them that would give them clarity of Father. The right words would be chosen, Lord. Even things like, Lord, making the slide deck to be attractive and neat and nice. Oh, Father, that you would give ideas, oh Father, that you would help us, oh Father, Lord. I pray that even as we put our hands together to work and build, you'll help us to build something much more beautiful and much larger than what we could even think of, Father, with our human minds. At all the same time, Lord, keeping our heart in check, and Lord, keeping us humble and the posture of learning. We thank you again for this time, and until we meet next week, oh Father, for the in-person sessions, I pray that you'd be with us and go before us. We thank you and praise you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. All right.